Welcome, everyone. This is episode one of the Be Beautiful podcast. I am Cody from Zupac Athletic Club and the Be Beautiful Foundation, our nonprofit project aimed at promoting health and wellness with special consideration towards athletes living with developmental disabilities. We provide personal counseling and personal fitness training for all of our community because we believe in a healthy and active lifestyle. Strong body, strong mind is not just a saying, it's a real thing. And we really try to encourage that for everyone. Um, we use this channel to really talk about some of the services we provide through our nonprofit, about community engagement, about services related to our athletes, and most importantly, about mental health services. We believe that everyone should be in counseling at some point. Sometimes you just got to get in a chair and work your stuff out. Today, we have with me our head of our athletic department for the Be Beautiful Foundation, my head coach, ex professional triathlete Raymond Botelho. And today, we're going to be talking a little bit about his journey into the coaching world, his approach to coaching, his experience as a professional athlete, and just his insight into the world of athletics. So, Ray, always a pleasure to see you. Why don't you give yourself an introduction?
Hi, thanks for having me, Cody. It's my pleasure to be here to speak with you, go over a number of topics. I've been involved with the sport of triathlon since 1994. Um, Long story since then. Been lucky to do a lot. Started off as an athlete, moved my way through the ranks, raced professionally for a long, long time, and I was lucky enough to have the idea that I wanted to start coaching. I knew that supplementing coaching would certainly complement my dream, which was to be a professional triathlete. So in 2007, I started coaching. And I was at the time also teaching swimming lessons. And my director of the swim program, AquaSafe, she suggested that I really uh, had a knack, a gift, if you will, of working with people, and I was super flattered by that. So we put together a brochure for me, and she became actually my first client in 2007. We trained her, prepared her to go and do Ironman Lake Placid in 2007. So then from that on, off I went. I raced professionally, was lucky to travel all over the world, and also live and train in different parts of the world, and also coach. And I got more and more involved with coaching. I knew that someday that's what I wanted to do and what I was going to be full time. And here I am today. I um, stopped racing professionally, if you will, just about 2 years ago. I was just turned 50. I had held on to my professional status over the course of 20 years. I'm pretty proud of that. But right now, my priority is coaching and being a better coach. I also have a personal training business, but coaching is what I feel like I was meant to do, and that's what I am going to do. And I want to provide the best help that I can for anybody at any level. I will work with anyone that's willing to learn and work hard, and that's that. I mean, there's nothing I won't do. I sort of um, take on the role of, as I say, more of an athlete manager, because with my extensive experience and being lucky to have I've had coaches myself and trainers myself and nutritionists and therapists and so on. So all that compiled knowledge I'm now using for my coaching business, my clients, and I love to share all this stuff. So that's how that's how I carry myself, and I'm no well. I'm still going to be competing in that, but it's not a priority, if you will, coaching is my priority. So that's what I love to do, and that's what I want to be. I want to be a coach. I want to be a very, very good coach. So the athlete management thing means I'm willing to help with all of it. Get the right equipment, pick the right races, help you with how to travel with your equipment and where to go, where to be, and how to do it, and what to stay away from, and how to rest in your travels, and what other types of drama may come up along the way. I have some, again, great stories. That's the name of the game with me. Is I feel like I'm not ashamed to say I've done it all wrong, and I learned. There's no better way to learn and to maybe fail, do it wrong once or twice. We don't want to stay that way. We want to fix it, obviously, but I feel like I've learned a lot through my mistakes. And to this day, I give all the credit to my mentors and coaches I've had along the way. Though I am a self-taught triathlete, if you will, I mean, I literally taught myself how to run and swim, especially a very technical aspect of that very technical sport. So I'm pretty proud of that. So the balance of the three sports, and then the recovery that's involved, and it's a mental game, and you know there's other types of cross training that you should do or possibly could do to enhance your performances. That's how I involve myself with this. There's nothing I won't do, and if I don't know, I'll figure it out. I will learn. I'm always looking to sort of learn new things, if you will. I do feel like I have my own style, and I'm pretty set with that. I definitely want to make it better and tweak it here and there, but you know, I'm talking about we're in my fourth decade now with the sport and working with hundreds of athletes of all levels. I've been lucky to work with some of the absolute best coaches on the planet. And like I said, I give all the credit to them and my mentors, and I put together a pretty nice manual, if you will, of my own to coach people like you, Cody. I've had a pleasure coaching now. We're going on what 5, 6 years,
Yeah,
and
about six
you know,
years.
yeah, and I feel lucky, and obviously working with someone. I have clients now. We're in our 10th year, and obviously with that type of a relationship, you get pretty close to the person, get to know them pretty well, and then more of a, dare I say, it's okay. I mean, it's a business, but I do have friends through this whole story that I will keep regardless of whether I'm coaching them or not. So coaching someone for more than just a block or a month or a year or a half a year or one race or one event, when you're talking years, it's really special to me, and I'm lucky to have a handful of people like that have been working with me for a long, long time, and I appreciate the loyalty and the trust. So,
Yeah, thanks for that, Ray.
okay.
So we got a lot to talk about today, and definitely in your intro, 20 years experience, you have one of the longest running professional careers in triathlon. So I know you've seen it all, you've heard it all, and we definitely want to get into it. We're gonna definitely talk a little bit about your approach to coaching, some of my experiences that I've had with you. I'm sure you're going to mix in stories. I know you have a million of them as we get going. And you always keep me laughing when we actually get into them. I think to date, my favorite story is still when you were down in Cozumel, Mexico, with the having to jump in that little plane and fly over to the
Oh
island for
wow,
your
yeah,
race.
yeah,
That was one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. So if we get a
yeah,
chance, we'll tell the audience about that.
sure,
But
sure.
yeah, so Ray, I guess in addition to you transitioning to full-time coaching now and you're no longer racing professionally,
Mhm.
We had talked a little bit last time about giving back to the community, and I know you've been a massive supporter of our nonprofit organization, the Be Beautiful
Yes.
Foundation.
Hmm.
So, tell me a little bit about what it means to you to give back now that you're not racing full time, giving back to the community.
Hmm. Well, I feel like it's really important to me to help anyone and everyone, get healthy, be active with something in their life, have a healthy, active lifestyle, and maybe you have some sort of limiter or disability. Doesn't matter to me. Everyone has capability to do something, other than just, live and work and pay your bills, right? You should have something that motivates you and inspires you, and again, keeps you healthy. I mean, I'm 50 plus guy now, but I'm doing everything I can to stay young. And I've been fortunate enough, I do not have any disabilities. And I have worked with young men, especially with some disability. And I'm telling you, it was a lot of fun, and I felt really good about it. It was tied to my personal training business. I was lucky to have these boys come in. It's about six of them, I believe. We might have more at times. And they come in to see me into my studio on the Cape, and we do exercise. We do some fitness and all different sorts of stuff. And they tried a lot of different things, and at first they were very shy and very maybe intimidated and scared, nervous, whatever you want to call it, and that just made me melt. So it just made me want to help them more. It's sort of like I'm a dad, and I was again going back to the early days with Trish at Aquasafe, the lady that gave me my first shot at coaching. I was in the pool with a group of 3-year-olds singing songs and teaching them how to swim. So stuff like that, still to this day, is valuable to me and to my how I approach my coaching and how I just help people, regardless. People skills and how to make someone comfortable or be gentle or sensitive to their, if they have some sort of a limiter or disability, a 3-year-old or maybe a guy with some sort of a learning disability. Doesn't matter to me. Everyone everyone is good at something. I really believe that. You just have to find it. But when it comes to your health, I mean, I feel like everyone has the right or should be trying to be healthy, because at the end of the day, I want to live as long as possible. I met someone just last week, a client of mine. Um, he had a really good friend who lived to be 101. Fortunately, just
Wow.
passed, but he always would tell me stories about him. Over the last 10 years, he would tell me stories. He turned 90, 91, and he got to 101. That guy definitely took care of himself. Maybe, yeah, there's a little luck involved, but like I said, it revolves around a healthy lifestyle, which is what I want to um, instill in people and inspire people with. Is just, you can, no matter what, regardless, you can be healthy. You can have a healthy
Mhm.
lifestyle. You can make the most of what you have. So, that's that.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. And I know you'll never say it, but I think it's important to point out, in addition to, you working with some of the athletes that we send you, in addition to you referring some of the athletes to me for, counseling services and everything else, you donating portions of your monthly coaching fees to us has really allowed us to be able to provide some of these services to some of our kids, especially out here in New Jersey. Knowing that I work with the inclusion teams in our town to really be able to give some parents some financial relief and some kids some opportunities to do things that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And the best feedback I actually get from, especially when we get new kids, especially the ones that are a little bit more shy, um, is that picture you have signed of yourself on the bike. I think in Texas on whichever highway that is,
Yeah.
in full tuck in your aero kit. The kids just love that. As far as they know, you're still getting a signed autograph picture from big time professional athlete. They think it's like the greatest thing in the world. So for anyone curious
Good
about
memory.
specifically what we're talking about, the athletes that we work with the Be Beautiful Foundation are living with developmental disabilities. So whether it be things like autism spectrum disorder, or most people actually don't know, ADHD falls into that category. I do work with two individuals that grew up with chromosomal disorders. They fall under learning disorder category. So there's a wide array. But to your point, Ray, that one hit home for me. Everyone has the ability to try to do more and be capable of achieving more than other people might think. And, it really starts with health and wellness. I think, I jokingly talk about it all the time, the saying strong body, strong mind. But that's why we built that model, because it's hard when you first get into a sport. And I remember for me, when I started my journey with you, I've been a long time athlete, since I was 3 years old, from playing basketball and team sports like football my whole life. And I was boxing from the time I was 8 years old. So running is part of that culture. And I remember when we first talked, my goal was to be able to run a marathon, 6 years ago when I got started with you. And I've been trying for so long and trying to build into that. I felt like my knees were just never good enough. I was always in pain. And in hindsight, it wasn't that I wasn't capable of doing a marathon. It was that I was doing every possible thing wrong to
Mm.
sabotage myself from trying to build up to that distance. And to this day, I remember, getting on with you and you just told me, like, dude, slow down. Don't worry about 26 miles. Just go for a jog for a half hour and let's build from there. And, lo and behold, I think it was like less than 12 months later, I was completing my first marathon under you after having been trying to do it for maybe 5 or 6 years before you on my own.
Mhm.
So just building up that mental strength and being able to build off your experiences and then your guidance into how to appropriately build up volume without breaking down, my body or hurting myself like I was doing, and lack of nutrition, all these things I want to get into with you. That's really been my experience with you. And now over the years, I almost take it for granted when I'm working with our new athletes, or I'm doing counseling with people and stuff that I now find basic 101 knowledge. It's amazing how many people don't know the fundamentals. And yet they want to try something as insane as completing a full distance Ironman, which I don't care who you are. If you finish one, that's one of the biggest achievements that you can do athletically. And
Sure.
then,
Sure.
it only goes up from there. So let's jump into a little bit about your approach to coaching in general. And I'm going to leave that open ended. That way you can give us a little bit of your perspective. But Ray, before we get into that, give me 1 second. Let's jump into your approach to coaching as a whole. Like I said, I'm gonna leave this one open ended because you know you do it best. You're the big shot here. So tell me about. Let's maybe start at the beginning. Let's talk about your just philosophy about coaching, and then let's walk through how you intake a new athlete and then move through the progression of getting them to reach their goals?
Sure, sure. Okay, well, in one word, I would say that my coaching is conservative, but definitely very detailed. And I definitely would say I have my own sort of style, if you will. Now, I'm not saying I've invented anything, but like we talked about, I mean, this is going back to 1994. Um, and from the very, very beginning, the first thing I taught or I was shown, if you will, was a heart rate monitor. I put it on for the first workout I ever did, and I haven't changed. Here we are, 1994, it's 2025. Whether I'm racing or not, I still live by heart rate because I feel it's yours, it belongs to you, you own it, and that's how you identify your engine. So when I say conservative, that means I like to start from the beginning or from the bottom, if you will, regardless of your experience, your pedigree, your background, your ability. We definitely get into that. I definitely identify that. So again, being, an elite athlete myself and having the experience I have now in the body of work, I can identify quite quickly someone's athletic prowess. Um, and obviously it's through questions, but yet I can identify by looking at the person, listening to the person, and then off we go. So when I say start from the beginning, start from the bottom, and regardless of who you are, I want to make sure that we don't miss a step along the way. You can't sprint before you walk, right? So again, it's important to first of all say my intentions are obviously uh, always good. I'm not here to sabotage anyone. It just requires trust. Coaching requires trust. So if I have your trust, just know that my priority are your results, your
Mm-hmm.
performances. And sometimes I get into situations where it might the actual performance may not be as important to the individual as the experience, where they say they want to be an Ironman. It's a bucket list thing to finish an Ironman, which is an amazing feat. But yet I'm always going to look beyond that. I'm going to try to get more out of you than you even would think you could get out of yourself. Again, anyone, I honestly believe anyone can do an Ironman. It's really, I don't want to say it's not that hard, but I just feel like what I've seen over the years and this type of people I've seen accomplish this goal, or who I've shown the road, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever type of scenario I've seen, I feel like anyone can do it with the right approach, with a conservative approach, a careful approach, but it has to be detailed, meaning you start from the beginning, you start from the bottom. And the first thing you need is obviously the trust, right? The trust between the coach and the athlete. You need to have a plan. So the plan is very to me, it should be detailed,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the athlete, or their experience, whether you're a beginner or you're a, I don't know, 12-time Ironman. I feel
Yeah.
like the approach needs to be the same. At the same time, it's not a complicated approach. I do not believe in complicating the process, because most of the people I'm working with are they have real jobs, they have careers, they have families, they have marriages, and that I factor all that in. So the amount of time, the amount of hours you spend per week, I feel like is genuinely my responsibility. So whatever allotted time I get through the process of meeting each other and discussing your goals,
Mm-hmm.
whatever amount of time that is, I will make that work for you. I've had people say, sky's the limit. I also have people that say, well, geez, Ray, I really realistically only have about 11 hours a week. Well, it is what it is. There are no excuses. We can make that work. And again, through extensive experience and research, if you will, or
Mm-hmm.
just knowledge, I know that it's possible. So first of all, you don't need 7 days a week. I just don't believe in that. By all means, you can use 7 days a week, but you don't need 7 days a week. Okay. So that's when I go
Now,
back to the
now,
word.
Ray, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me jump in there for a second
Yeah.
before we get into, because I want to make sure we cover a bunch of stuff and a bunch of questions as we get going. I
Yeah.
definitely want to talk about your time management, but you said something really interesting at the beginning, and I think what you're talking about when it comes to not being complicated and that anyone can finish a Ironman, it's not
Mm-hmm.
that it's not difficult, it's that you take a very systematic approach, and through that system, anyone can achieve that goal of completing an
Yep.
Ironman. It is
Absolutely.
possible through a very tailored, systematic approach. But like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you can't sprint before you can walk. And what I, from experience, what you really do well is you teach us how to crawl before we learn how to walk, into
Yeah.
jogging, into running, into sprinting, into long distance running. And that's, I can't emphasize that enough. And I'm a massive believer, even before I was working with you, in having systems that we follow, because in psychology, tools that I use every day are setting realistic goals and being able to be real with ourselves. And if we're saying unrealistic goals, like going out and doing an Ironman without training, then we can't expect to put down a pro time. We're going to get out what we put in. Now,
Mm-hmm.
before we get into all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I want to, just before we get into your system for coaching,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, because I know everyone asked this. I asked this question of you when we got started. Heart rate training versus training for time and distance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those are kind of the two main camps.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've talked about it so much, but why train by an hour of heart rate versus going out and running, 9-minute miles for an hour?
Mm-hmm.
So
Um,
why heart rate?
yeah. Well, first of all, the heart rate. So I feel like I realize that everyone's intentions are good. You just want to work hard. You want some sort of a result, right? You want to feel proud of your result. You want to feel accomplished. You put all this time in. You most likely love doing it. So you want some payback, if you will. So, well, the heart rate, like I said, that's yours. That belongs to you. That's how you identify your your the feeling of everything, the effort level, the
Mm-hmm.
intensity, the toll it's taking on your body. You can throw out paces and wattages and that sort of thing, but if just me personally, I'm so brainwashed, if you will, that okay, if you told me X pace or X power, I'm gonna want to know what heart rate is associated with that, because then that's gonna tell me just how hard that was, if you will, or what intensity it was, regardless of who you are or where you are in your training, whether you feel like you're fit, you're not fit, you're a beginner, you know, you call yourself an elite athlete or you call yourself a bum, whatever it is. For me, the first uh, principle is heart rate. So when you ask me about pace and time, well, it's actually what I believe is you should go, tracking heart rate for duration. Now, so if the training plan is designed in hours, right? So there's a balance there. There's a formula there.
Mm-hmm.
A certain amount of hours swimming, certain amount of hours biking, certain amount of hours running. It's just how I was taught, and I
Mm-hmm.
liked how that felt to me. So and again, as my own for my own training, for the most of my career, I self coached, and yes, the years that I had a coach, I definitely put it in their hands and let them sort of run my training plan. But at the same time, I've always had my own little twist on everything, and that's how I learned what works for me. Now, what people say, what works for me, what may not. Well, I mean, everyone has a heart rate, and everyone can identify what their heart rate is or where they are with their heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
whatever, regardless of max heart rate or resting heart rate or age, or you know that certain numbers along the way mean something, whether it means recovery, or it means threshold, or it means you're at your limit, or this is, low intensity, this is high intensity. I mean, there's really no real more clear or simpler way to identify it than with heart rate. So that's what I build all of my principle around is your heart rate. I'll do anything. We'll do, you can do any kind of test you want, any kind of, target you want, but I like to see the heart rate because it tells me where we are at with stress, where we're at with what this is doing to your body over and over at certain points of the way.
So that's going to lead to my next question, Ray. And I know the last time we saw each other, I asked this question. So one of the big topics coming up lately has been heart rate variability, which I have always been very skeptical about because most people are getting this off their wrist, which is a separate issue that we can talk about between wrists versus chest straps. But what is your take on using heart rate to monitor when someone's experiencing burnout versus using heart rate variability specifically?
Well, again, there's lots of technology now, and lots of companies are coming up with all different kinds of ways to train or track your body, your history. But again, back to the early days, the beginning phases, I to this day, I know what my heart rate is, obviously, right? I know what my max is. I know what my resting heart rate should be. And I know what my recovery is. I know what that sort of, and obviously, hopefully, I know what all of my athletes or my clients' heart rates are, right? That's how I identify my style of coaching. Now, heart rate availability is simply a variance of your heart rate. So when you look at it, yeah, okay. So if you've really delved into heart rate and you understand your own, you don't need to understand so much even heart rate in general, just that what your own heart rate means. So if your resting heart rate is 46, and how do we know that? Because we track it, right? You can it's very simple to check your resting heart rate. You need say a block of days, a consistent block of days where you check it. And it's, if it's 46, it's 47, it's 48, it's 46, 47. So you know where it should be. Now, heart rate variability is simply if you wake up one day and you've been tracking it and it's 48 on average, and you wake up and it's 55. Well, there's two really blatant possibilities. You're either getting sick or you're tired. You're tired. It's that simple. But going back to common sense, if you just did a 3-day weekend and you did 13 hours of training, right, and then you check your heart rate Monday, Tuesday, well, I would expect that your heart rate is going to be. It's not alarming that my resting heart rate is 46. If I woke up on Tuesday and it was 54, well, I know why. I just spent 13 hours in 3 days training and I'm tired, right? I'm tired, which brings me to the other thing where my favorite day off of the week for the typical athlete, the working athlete, if you will, the career, the businessman, or the businesswoman, or the corporate, you're doing a bulk of your training Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So come Tuesday, it all catches up with you. I call it terrible Tuesday. And again, speaking from experience, this is not a theory. I trained all week, and then it caught up with me. And then on Tuesdays, I always feel lethargic and grumpy and tired and not motivated. And I call it terrible Tuesday. And yeah, my heart rate would also be, if it was supposed to be 46, it would be 55, 56. No big deal. It just means a little more rest, a little more recovery, a little more hydration, time off your feet. and so heart rate variability, I feel like it's complicating something that's just very straightforward. It's based off of um, your ultimately your resting heart rate, and it's your variability. Well, yeah, um, if you wake up fresh and healthy and rested, it's going to be spot on. If you're sick or you're tired, it's going to be higher. But I think you would know that knowing what you just went through, right? I feel like
Hmm.
that's heart rate variability. It's are you tapering? Are you about to race? Did you just put in a 21-hour training week, right?
Hmm.
And then it's 36 hours after a 21-hour, and there's a delay to it even. So you kind of we like to forget what we've done, but if I just and again I feel like as an athlete, I'm not the compulsive type. I was always able to rest. So I think that makes me also a good trait of being a coach because I'm not a compulsive guy and I don't like to just like force a lot of
Hmm.
torture on my athletes. I certainly wouldn't do it to myself. And you can sort of you really know along the way how you feel. I mean, without all these devices and all this technology, you just be honest with yourself. I mean, you know how you feel. I mean, I was like, geez, I mean, Tuesday, I mean, I'm spent. I'm gonna take it easy today. Usually Tuesday was my regular day off,
Yep.
completely off. Um,
Now, Ray, so I would assume as well, I know for me, you really beat it into my head as well. Even when we're going into those recovery days, or you give me a full day off, I might even come back on a Wednesday, try to do a recovery ride. And I know, our recovery rides for me, I can get into, low triple digits, whether it's 101, 102, 103 watts, but I'm in double digit heart rate.
yep.
And if we really beat down, or if we're going to talk heart rate variability, if I had a lot of variability, I might see my heart rate being higher than double
Yes.
digits. I might be at maybe 105 heartbeat beats per minute at only 95 watts. So
Hmm.
my watts will be lower and my heart rate will be higher. Or maybe if I'm on a run, maybe up in zone 3 when maybe my normal, easy run endurance pace, maybe my marathon pace might be low zone 2, but I'm up in the zone 3. So if my heart rate variability is really off, or if I'm really fatigued, I'm gonna see it while I'm working out.
Hmm.
And on those days, those are the days where I have to kind of examine and say, hey, maybe today's not the day. Maybe I need to drop the pace or change the workout you
Hmm.
assigned
Hmm.
and give myself an extra day of rest. That way I can get a quality workout on Thursday.
Well, what's really astonishing to me is I I don't understand how you wouldn't expect that, right? So if
Yeah.
you are an experienced, if you are really paying attention to your training and to how you feel, I feel like you just got to slow down and pay attention because honestly, if you took all my devices away, I could still manage
Mm-hmm.
myself because like you just said, all those variances, yes, it's confusing and maybe it could be demoralizing or there's a you panic or you're worrisome or something, but you should expect this stuff. And then you have there's less chances of being disappointed, if you will. I don't know what you would call that, but like go back to what I said. So if everything's great and you're healthy and you're not overdoing it and you're in sort of a moderate phase, you see in 46 resting heart rate, right? So then you just put in 21-hour week, or maybe you went to a camp or something and you really
Mm-hmm.
went big. So you when you go on a recovery ride and the goal is always, to me anyway, a real recovery ride. And I was taught this and
Mm-hmm.
I saw it happen. And then how I felt, again, how I felt. And to ride, um, for me, the ultimate for me was when I was in my absolute best form, fit and everything was just operating perfectly. I would see 150 watts and my heart rate would be below 90. Okay, that's when
Oh,
I
geez.
knew. That's when I knew I was in shape. Like I was taught real fitness and
Mhm.
real training and what a real recovery ride was like. So, and I know that if I'm seeing 90 and 150, the rest of it all just comes together. Like, what my heart rate was at 200 watts, what my heart rate was at threshold, so it's about efficiency, but
Mhm.
you should expect to you should already know beforehand what you shouldn't be so astonished on what you see. So I know if I just rode, let's say 300 miles in 3 days, and then Monday is a recovery ride, if I see 150 watts and I'm having trouble keeping it in my normal sub
Mhm.
90, then guess what? Slow down,
Yep.
right? So what? It's going to be 123 watts. Well, I needed the recovery, right? I needed the recovery. Now the flip side to that is I've trained for 12 weeks. I'm about to do an Ironman. I've had an easy week. I've
Mhm.
taken 2 days off race week, and I'm doing my last little 20-minute ride with my race set up, my aero helmet on. So my CDA is crazy low. It's easy to go fast. And I'm going along, say, you know, the Panama City Beach, front beach road there, flat, beautiful 70 degrees in Ironman, Florida, the day before Ironman, Florida. And I'm riding at 200 watts, and my heart rate is, 110.
Mhm.
I expected that. Why did I expect it? Because I took 2 days off. I took an easy week. I've been training my butt off for the last 3, 4 months, and I'm about to race. So you should expect to see that like it should essentially feel easy to go
Mhm.
fast, effortlessly, right? Now, if you those days where you're putting miles and miles and miles or hours and hours and hours in, and I've seen this too, where you feel like you're trying so hard and your heart rate's not coming up, right? Yeah, but you
Mhm.
you know it because you feel it. You feel heavy, lethargic. You're not that motivated. You look like you got panda bear eyes. You're sleepy. You're tired, and you're riding at your normal 180 watts. You're on a long ride and you're riding 180 watts, and normally your heart rate is say 125. Well, it's like 118, but you feel like you're at 150, right? That's fatigue. That's real fatigue. If you can't get into zone, that's another type of variability where that's fatigue. If you wake up with an elevated heart rate, you're like, geez, I'm a little banged up, but you should know why. You
Yeah.
just spent all those hours, right? And then you got to try and do it again. You got to try to get out there and do another 4 hour ride in zone one. And you get out there and you feel like you're trying and the power is there, but it's harder than usual. But you look at your heart rate and it's, geez, my heart rate is so low. And that's fatigue. That's tired. That means probably call it a day, or again, what I've always done myself, go even slower. Just go even slower. Don't panic. Don't fight through it. Don't get frustrated. Expect this stuff. This is what happens. And the way
Well,
you
Ray, I think that's what you've said it a couple of times now. I think that's one of the hardest things for athletes, especially athletes with a coach that's pushing a plan. And I know for you, you always side on if you need a recovery day, take it.
Mhm.
But so many athletes see, it's Thursday and I'm supposed to go put a high intensity ride in or a high intensity run, and I'm banged up, but my plan says I have to go hard, so I have to go hard. And I think
Mhm.
that's especially with inexperienced coaches trying to push too much intensity, especially on new athletes or non-experienced athletes not taking an additional rest day. So, what's your advice to the athlete who's banged up and thinks that it's not okay to take a day off or not
Well,
okay to slow down?
to me, that's just basic coaching. So the plan needs to be adjusted. It's very simple, but that's communication. I haven't mentioned that yet. Communication. I would rather communicate than analyze. Um, I, I mean, analyzing. a session. I feel like it's a waste of energy. You need a body of sessions. One session is not going to make or break anything. So if you come to this and there's some pressure there, if you come up on a day where again, this goes back to you should expect this. This comes through experience and paying attention to what you're doing. Instead of just go, 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 what's tomorrow? What's the, you know, pay attention to those feelings. I mean, I honestly, not to sound, I mean, I could almost every single time call those feelings for myself because I know what I had done. How easily we forget. If I just spent in my plan, Wednesday and Thursday were my biggest days. And so, but by no means was I done, but that's when I did a lot of volume. It was Wednesday, Thursday. So you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend. I still utilized the weekend. I mean, but I knew what was coming. Like the lethargic, crabby, tired, not motivated because of what I had just done. So heaven forbid if I came up one day and they just didn't have it, just bail. I mean, honestly, just you can do it another day. I mean, I'm not saying cram or double down, but that session can be moved to another time. I mean, it's just one day. So and again, communication. So if you, Cody, let's say, well, you know this, you know, if you have your plan and you're just not feeling it, well, I'm probably going to hear from you at some point, and then we'll just adjust it, right? It's that simple. I mean, it's that simple. Especially if you got a coach, it's really that simple. It's not in your hands. You don't feel good, so use your coach to make the decision. And I'm going to say, I'm not going to say, oh, you know, fight through it, suffer through it. I'm going to say, we'll call it a day. I mean, or just, you know, turn into a recovery day.
Yeah. Well,
So
man, I'm so happy you
that
say
simple.
that too, because you're making me remember back when I used to fight and when I was boxing. You know, my old boxing coach was in the Hall of Fame. You know, we know you're gonna get to the triathlon Hall of Fame one day, but
Oh God.
my boxing coach is actually there right now, and I remember. You know, let's take that concept to a more extreme level. I remember the day I learned this lesson from boxing, and I walked in and I was just beat up. I remember I had like 4 back to back weeks of sparring. We were going heavy. I was getting ready for a fight. I was getting ready for Golden Gloves actually. And I walked in one day and I just wasn't looking good. And my coach said like, "Hey, you know, how do you feel about doing some pad work?" And I kind of just went like, "You're the boss." And he said like, "Dude, you don't look good." He said, "Go home." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I gotta train. We got a fight coming up." And he said, "What's that gonna do for me to beat you down? What are you gonna do? You're gonna get in the ring and get knocked out." Like, you know, in a high stakes environment, you can't afford to not be rested. And I'm not saying that you're going to get knocked out or be put unconscious racing Ironman, but if you're going to do an actual endurance race, there are physical risks and you're about to put your body through so much stress. Can you really afford to go into a race not feeling well? Or, you know, God forbid you crash a bike, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or yeah, I remember after Tulsa, we were worried that I had rhabdo. It was a hot race. I didn't get my nutrition right, and these were just rookie mistakes. But being able to just take those days off and recover appropriately so that your body can be physically ready for that race. And I know even for me right now, recovering from the surgery, you know, you've been having me take extended time off just to make sure that we're doing quality sessions and working on technique as opposed to trying to beat myself down before I'm ready.
Yeah.
So again, just, you know, those insights to coaching, like I alluded to at the beginning when I was trying to get ready for my first marathon, and I was just trying to beat myself over the head for no reason when it was as
Yeah.
simple as take 2 days off.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I know you're really big on. I've seen so many coaches, or we see on social media all the time. What's a day off? Or I'm on, you know, day 500 of my run streak of running
Mm-hmm.
10 miles a day or something. It gets
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I have one last question about I have one last question about your heart rate before we get into that systematic coaching approach, but I want, if you can, I want one sentence responses on two questions. The first question, I want no more than two sentence response, super brief. How many days off in training? And we'll get into this one later. How
Weekly,
many days off per week training?
at least one, at
At
least.
least one.
Completely off,
And when you say off,
nothing.
so
I mean,
go get a
I can show you what my days off were. I mean, I'm lucky. I live on an island, and I'm obviously self-employed. So go back to the prime of my career, say 2015. I trained probably, being coached. I had a coach, so someone else was managing my plan. I lived on the beach, and I would, I'm sure you've seen my hashtag Big Wednesday, right?
yep,
I'd have
yep.
my huge Wednesdays where I would do anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8 hour rides or whatever, do these crazy long ocean swims, whatever. But I was training, say 5, 6 days a week. And again, that's my twist. I mean, I said I wanted a day off. So we had a day off, sometimes two. And I would go to the beach. I mean, I would, I have my personal training business. So I would go to my studio and work my clients 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then I would go home, put on my Normatex on the
Mm-hmm.
couch, have breakfast, and then I would literally go to the beach for the rest of the day. I
There we
mean,
go. Love it.
so that's a day off to me is nothing. When I say nothing, it's nothing.
As in no yard work, no
No,
weightlifting at the
no.
gym, not
And
even on
walking
a
is
Subway
not,
ride.
it's funny now. Walking is like a big thing now in aerobic, fat
Yep.
burning, and so absolutely not walking. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Walking is harder on your body than running. I mean, if you really think about it, the biomechanics and the impact. I
Mm,
mean, you take more steps walking than you do running theoretically. And so if you are a very good runner with a very high cadence and very good run form, and you're, as they say, light footed, if you ran for an hour versus walking for an hour, I mean, I've done it. You know, I actually got sore from walking in the hips. Right? Sounds
that's
pretty
an
pathetic, but
interesting topic, right? So we
no,
might
but
have to get in. We
I
might
mean,
have to get into that one.
so the answer to your question, minimum one day.
Okay. And then I might have to get back to you on that walking versus running thing because I know where you're coming from, and it's an interesting concept for an elite runner.
Yeah,
Um, but okay, so second question, and I know this is going to be a trigger for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So keep this response short. As you're talking, you keep talking about awareness, and you should know your body. And I know for you and your coaching, you really drill this into us, so I can go out. I know exactly what a zone one versus a zone two versus a zone three
yeah,
run bike swim feels like. I don't need it at this point to know what pace I'm running.
yeah, yeah.
But it's hard to develop and it definitely takes time. So here's my question for you.
Sure.
For all the Zwifties, I'm a Zwift guy myself, so I'm gonna say Zwifties. ERG mode.
What's that?
ERG mode.
Yeah, erg mode. Yeah, yeah. Off. Erg mode off. Now, here's why. Um, when riding, there's nothing better than obviously riding outside, right? You're riding outside in safe conditions, perfect conditions, scenic conditions, maybe with your buddies or not. There's low winds, good road surface. There's nothing better than that, right? I live on an island. I'm lucky. The rides I get to go on are ridiculous. We always have wind. The roads are nice, lower traffic. I mean, yada yada. I've been to Texas. I've been to London. I've been to Florida. I've been to California. I've ridden, Arizona. I've ridden everywhere. But Zwift is and I am a Zwift, ambassador.
Yep.
I was a hater before I actually tried it.
Mhm.
And one of my clients got me to try it, and then that was it. And then I linked up with them, and I love Zwift now. But even though you're riding on Zwift, and it's a fantastic bit of training technology, and it's safe and it's specific,
Mhm.
you want to still simulate it or treat it, if you will, as though it's still riding outside. So, like, still pretend like you're outside. the nuances of riding outside, still adhere to those. Meaning, A, don't get off every 5 minutes. Don't stop every 5 minutes and soft pedal and look
Mm-hmm.
at your phone, or like ride, right? Take advantage of the time where you can just ride. Stack up your fuel beside you and just ride. Now, I recommend elevation. Don't just ride flat all the time. Try to get, I think I always say about 500 feet. 1,000 would be the ultimate per hour of elevation. But here's why I say erg mode off. The nuances of shifting and anticipating shifting and anticipating hills and that sort of thing. Erg mode sort of does all that for you. And I get it. You're trying to hold a certain power. Or a certain watt per kilo, but at the same time, you still want to be able to produce your own power by way of your own cadence, because there are a lot of debates with cadence,
Yep.
and this cadence is right and this cadence is right. But the fact of the matter is, I know for a fact that a lower cadence promotes a lower heart rate, period, regardless of who you are. Okay. Um, but to each his own. Cadence is very personal to me. And again, how do I know this? Because I've seen it through my cycling and where I fell and where I was comfortable, where I produced the best power. Like, so in other words, if you want me to ride efficiently, or you want me to ride slow, or you want me to ride, as hard as I can, or both, right? As hard as I can efficiently so that I can run. The cadence, it's all over the board, right? But at the end of the day, I found that being a bigger guy, shorter legs, my sweet spot, if you will, for a cadence in an Ironman, again,
Mm-hmm.
my best races, say, take a body of work of my best 10 races.
Mm-hmm.
All the bike splits were this similar. The
Mm-hmm.
heart rate was similar. The wattage was the same. And my cadence fell just below 80.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that the best cadence for a time trial is 75 to 80. Now, some people disagree with that. Like, I know for a fact that Lance Armstrong had a higher cadence. He
Yep.
had a very high cadence, and obviously one of the best time trials ever. But then you look at Tony Martin, and if you've heard of who that is, big German guy. He was like in the 70s, right? So there's all kinds of different cadence falling, and that's why I say, like, it's to each his own. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. With that being said, erg mode off, especially at the novice beginner level, because you really need to learn how to anticipate and learn how to find your own sort of cadence, if you will, because that's what at the end of the day produces the power that you need to go X speed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a recovery ride, yes, obviously I would want a lighter, fluffier, higher cadence. But I've also gone on rides where my legs were so tired. I went on a recovery ride where my power was, 150, my heart rate was 90, but my cadence was still crazy low. It's just you're just not turning,
Mm-hmm.
so, and I could also do a fluffier ride where, but like I said, the erg mode thing is you're not learning how to. The long answer I'm giving is I feel like with erg mode, you're not learning how to shift, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
create your own cadence, where you like to be, because it doesn't do that for you. What it's doing is locking you into a certain watt per kilo or target or color, if the
Mm-hmm.
effort, the intensity color, and you're not really. And again, I've used it, and I've used it. I immediately did not like it, and cycling is my strength. I have no problem with any of that stuff, and I just like, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Ray, it's funny that you say that because when I started with you, and then I didn't have a smart trainer or anything until I was with you, and your plans do such a good job at teaching us to really learn our different paces, especially on the bike, where we do so much technique on the bike, cycling at different cadences. So we really get a feel for different heart rate zones, different cadences,
Mhm.
different powers. It's so varied. And now, because I can't, you've seen my trainer setup. I have a rocker board,
Yeah.
custom rocker board, and
Yeah.
smart stuff and everything. So it simulates it fantastic. Um, but I can't get onto my rocker board right now because of my ankle. So what is I'm using my regular dumb trainer, which, well, it's not a dumb trainer, but it's not a rocker trainer.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of the it's an old school trainer. It's like one of the first smart trainers with flat pedals on it because I need something stable that I can get on and
Yeah.
off of.
Yeah.
And for that, I can't plug into Ruby. I have just a preset thing. So I'm actually using erg mode to hold 100 watts because until I get cleared to go higher, I don't want to risk it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm not in control of my bike.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that the cadence I'm pedaling at, I know it's not appropriate for 100 watts. I know what my
Mm-hmm.
legs feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand erg mode anymore now that I
Yeah.
know how to cycle because you've taught me this is what 100 watts feels like. And I know when my cadence is off to
Mm-hmm.
match what erg mode is setting,
Yeah. Yeah.
it feels wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel that there's value, especially for new cyclists, to at least try your system and really get a feel for this is how you as an individual ride your bike. And at
Mm-hmm.
no point did you ever tell me, Cody, you have to ride at this cadence in this. You
Mm-hmm.
give me that window and said, figure out what works for you. And because we practice at those different cadences, I feel very comfortable when I get onto a long grinding hill because
Mm-hmm.
I know our low cadence workouts, I can hold that 60 watts at a high wattage for a half hour. I've done it in training sessions. Or if we're doing cadence pyramids, I know if it's time to sprint and I have to push a high RPM, we've been there in training. So
Mm-hmm.
I know what it feels like. And that's really the comfort you get and the knowledge you get from your plans. Now,
And
we can get into that later, but I do want to use this opportunity to segue into what I know you want to talk about for
yeah.
the second half.
Yeah.
And I just reset our cameras, so we are good.
Okay.
Um, awesome insights, Ray. You know, everything that you do is fantastic. I love your approach to training, and I really want people to get a feel for it. So my last question about heart rate zone, and this is going to bring us into systems, is you do your interview with a new client. You know, you guys kind of talk. You know, we see if we gel together. We decide we want to onboard with you as our coach, and the first thing you do as a heart rate coach is you establish heart rates.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, and I know this is a big topic, so do you want to talk a little bit about how many zones are there for
Mm-hmm.
your system,
Mm-hmm.
why that many, and how do you establish heart rate zones for a new client? And then I think that's going to wrap up and segue into how you go about training.
Okay. Well, I have sort of put my own twist again through my coaching experience, being coached, and what they taught me and what I learned, and then what I sort of discovered on my own, and how to really govern, if you will. You know, that means slow down your athletes, because at the end of the day, I can make you a grand plan with all the detail you want, but I can't do the training for you. I'm not there, you're not on a leash, so to speak, and I can't get you to do it the way I really envisioned it, like I do myself. Again, keep that in mind. I do all this myself. So I really understand it, and why I have this approach. So, through a very simple interview and a questionnaire, we sort of get to the bottom of what. And again, this may, to hit a nerve, but like, I feel like at the end of the day, it's still very arbitrary, even though, because it's more about control than anything, and being, again, conservative, back to that first word, about the an overall training. Okay, so because my number one goal is, before even the result, is injury prevention. Okay, I'm proud that I have a very low injury rate with hundreds of clients that I've worked with. And I feel like, because I'm more, like I said, I'm not a compulsive type guy. I'm always about the lower end of the process, if you will. and more not so much about the intense end of the process, because my specialty at the end of the day is Ironman and 70.3, and I feel like I understand what that takes. So the heart rate to me is more about your lower end, your lower three zones. Okay. And how do you come up with the right zones? Well, through just, experience. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like being a math professor and inventing a formula of some sort. I just see what happens to individuals when we do it this way. And again, ultimately, I've seen what it's done for me. And the key with me is being an older athlete where I peaked at, you could say 43 probably. And I think it's all to being conservative. I wasn't looking for an easy road or anything like that. It was just my approach of using a heart rate in my lower end of heart rate to get very, very aerobic and fit and durable for Ironman.
Yeah.
So,
Ray, before you keep going, just so
yeah.
that anyone listening understands your career, you also had a late start to the professional career. So when you say you
Well,
peaked at 43,
a
it's
late start
because
to, yeah, a late start to I don't know, doing well, if you will. Or
yeah,
my peak was late. Yes, yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
just that way people don't confuse or have a about that. And you were performing, at that time when you were racing against competitors,
Mhm,
you were at a very elite professional level.
mhm.
Um, it just happened to be a slightly different path than what's typical for most
Yeah,
people. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
think having that maturity as an athlete really led to your really is a conservative approach in injury prevention. All of our athletes are healthy.
Mhm,
I can speak to having worked through so many injuries over the year with you. I immediately we get on working with you and we go, wow, I feel so much better than when I was with this team of other people that
mhm,
didn't know what they were doing.
mhm,
So again, I'm going to ask specifically because I know this is one of the differences between you and most people. And I don't think it's a difference. I think what you've actually done is increase the quality of heart rate training because most people talk zones one, two, three, four, and five as your
mhm,
typical conventional approach with,
mhm,
more elite level athletes. And you almost
mhm.
have like a zone one and a zone one plus if we're talking everyone
Yep,
else.
yep.
Also introduce the zone recovery as a precursor to zone one.
Mhm, mhm.
So why did you feel that it was important to expand what most people call zone one
Well,
into a zone recovery?
this was something again that I was shown by uh, a coach, and I had not to this day, I've to this day not seen it anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And though it was shown to me, they don't really identify it, if you will, in the industry. And I'm just baffled by that. And so to me, you know, I guess in the basic world, zone one is considered recovery, which I
Mm-hmm.
just don't, I've come to find over the years, it just doesn't make sense to me. So when you're talking recovery, and then you're talking one. I mean, those are two very different zones to me. And I realized this with my training and my career and how I refreshed myself and recovered myself and tapered myself, and then I started to utilize it with athletes. And I've also seen other professional athletes do it too, I think. But all I'm saying is, to worry about myself. I mean, I saw what it did for me, and then I became very passionate about it. So to me, the zones start at zone R. Now, zone R is very simple. It's zone recovery. It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense? Yes. So, and the zones are set. You could debate that they're set higher in the end, but they're really designed to be set lower to get you to go even slower. Now, you can cross-reference this with any, if you will, original or old school metric where, I was taught by an Olympian when I was just starting to learn how to run that your date pace, meaning what do you run right now? No excuses. What is your date pace for the mile or the 5K? Date pace means now. So he said, what is your 5K date pace? Let's say it's an 8-minute mile. So, okay, you run a 5K at 8-minute flat pace. Your recovery pace is plus 3 minutes per mile. So, 11-minute mile. 11-minute mile is, if you're an 8-minute 5K runner, your recovery pace should be 11 minutes. Now, jump ahead, 40 years and pair that with your heart rate. And you will find that if you run an 8-minute 5K and you tell me that 9 minutes is your recovery run, and I ask you for what your heart rate is, we're going to see quite quickly that it's not recovery, right? So to get you to make sure that you're going slow enough, I create, again, based on age and experience level and max heart rate. And again, we don't have to even get it within the exact beat, give or take 2 or 3 beats, because I'm admitting to you that your zones are arbitrary. I'm more concerned with the lower end than the high end. So if we test and we come up with your heart rate is 176, but I only guesstimated 173, so what? It doesn't matter, because the zones are 10 beats in variance, right, per zone. You can cross over 5 beats. So like if you are training in zone 1 and your zone 1 is 130 to 140, well, you're going to want to get to 145 to average 140. If I say average in the top of your zone 1, Cody, for a 4-hour ride, that means you're hopefully riding 130 to 140. But in order to average at the top of the zone, you're going to have to spend some time in the middle of zone 2, right? Makes sense? Now, just a little bit, and it's later on in the ride, a nice progressive, gradual, uptick of a heart rate graph, right? So I can see you start. So it's that simple to me. Not 130 to 140 does not mean at any point be 150, right? See, that's the thing. Like, people don't understand. Like, so yeah, maybe you end up averaging 139. But I can look at your history of the ride and no, 151, I saw 152. We don't want that. You want to stay within as best as possible without going over then crossing over 5 beats. That keeps it clean. It's a cleaner, smoother ride. And obviously, if that's the case, you're going to have a cleaner, smoother cadence, whether it's running or riding. Your power, whether it's running or riding, is going to be smoother. The whole thing, right? So the recovery zone is a recovery zone. So there are recovery workouts planned prescribed in the plan. And that means to me that zone or less, right? That zone or less. So I'll give you an example. My recovery zone, my recovery for the bike, I think I don't know, I think it's 195 to 105 or something like that. I'm a bad example because I have a low heart rate regardless. Like my max heart rate may not. I mean, I might not even be 160. So, but that's regardless. It's more about the lower end. I don't care about that ceiling. It's more about the lower end. So, when I go on a recovery ride, like I said, I will go. When I say go as slow as possible, this is early days of a new athlete who's never really experienced a proper recovery ride. Because it's something I'm kind of contradicting myself. I'm telling you 150 watts at 90 heart rate. Well, that's too low. And, it's confusing. That's someone who's been doing this for 10 years, right?
That's an elite athlete. This is an amateur.
Yeah. It's consistency. But if you're new to this, when I say as slow as possible, because I want to see what we get, right? So if I take somebody on and I'm like, okay, this is your first recovery heart rate with me. I want a 60-minute ride, as slow as possible. I want to just see what happens. And sure as shit, I see 120 heart rate, and 90 watts. Well, that tells me like, wow, that's 90. I regardless of the wattage, that's too high of a heart rate. I don't think their wattage is only 90 because I said go as slow as possible. So I don't care.
But then you also hear, right? Then you hear I can't go that slow.
Yes, that's right.
That's the common one.
Don't get me started with that. And you know what's funny is you would think that would come from our egotistical male athlete. I've heard I can't go slow from more women than anybody. I'm just like, it's just shocking to me. And women are usually they really listen. They're very competitive, but they really listen to what you say and they do exactly what you say. But the one thing I hear, and it's fun because it's a challenge, is they say, I can't go that slow, right? So day
Well,
one,
there's definitely some, just to be clear, there's definitely differences between coaching male and females and needs if we're talking about stereotypes. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want anyone to get the wrong idea
No,
because
no, 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 no. I'm
I
just
can,
saying
no,
that.
no, I'm just
Yeah,
saying, right? Because I can personally talk about the sports psychology of that. But yeah, you're definitely onto something there. And my favorite comeback that you give, and I've seen you do it, is come for a ride with me. I
oh yeah,
guarantee
yes,
I can
yes,
ride
yeah,
slower than you, and you
yeah. And
will.
again,
You'll go out and ride 60 watts.
yep. It's again another word I would use is practical. Just I'm being practical. Like when we do our camps, right? Let's say we go to Wood Lane, the famous
Yep.
Wood Lane loop, and we do it. We just go around that neighborhood over and over and over, and it's pretty flat. And I'm like, okay, recovery ride. And then the next thing I know, I'm last, right? I'm last, right? Everyone's ahead of me. And I'm just like, they're just not listening to me. And I'll ride up on somebody quickly. What's your heart rate? What's your heart rate? What's your heart rate? And every single time I'm like, slow down. Like, slow down. It's so easy. First of all,
It
small
really
chain.
is.
Put it in your small chain ring. First of
Yep.
all, you should not even ever think about your bigger chain ring, right?
Yep.
Even if you're on a one by, I don't care. It's like the easiest gear, and just
Yep.
you know granny with a basket on her bike, go that slow, right? I mean, so that's zone R to me. That is zone R. So
So I want
from
to clarify, Ray, too, before we keep going. So within your system, just in case anyone didn't follow that, we are using zone R as a recovery, and then
yes,
above zone R, there's zones 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for
yep.
anyone that's been following or knows about a traditional 5 zone system, because then
I
there's some
will
people
go.
that,
Let me go into a little bit further detail because again,
okay,
you can please challenge me with this and debate it with me because I will give you every scenario possible where if I have a younger athlete, okay, and I just came
mm-hmm,
across this young man, 25, max heart rate was like 203,
mm-hmm,
okay, so you got that guy, right? Women's heart rates generally run higher, right? So you have that.
okay,
Then you have an older athlete, a stronger, older, experienced athlete who's 45, right? Super strong athlete, and his max heart rate is 168. Okay.
yep,
So
yep,
how can you make zone R through zone 5 match up so that it's 10 beats per zone for all those different zones? Well, guess what?
yeah,
Every once in a while, some of these people won't have a zone 5. They'll be R through 4, right?
mm-hmm,
Or I'll have R through 6. I use their heart. I use what we have to work with. If your max is
yep,
190, if it's 203, if it's 70, I still make the zones, but from the bottom up. From the
that
not
makes
from the
sense.
top down.
Yep,
We don't even need your super. So you've got threshold, right?
yep,
Super, your anaerobic, and then you're at your limit. That's it. You're at your limit. We don't need that, especially when you're talking about Ironman training. Ironman
and
training,
that's the point.
you
Yeah,
can debate that you don't even need your threshold zone. I mean, yes, obviously there is some intensity work in the training. At times we do races, but the name of the game is from zone 2 down. And the R is your sick day, it's your day off, it's your taper, it's your race day pace. It's very important. It's very, very, very important. And if you go too hard, too high, you're taking away from your results. You are. And I can see it in 1 minute. I can see it. And if you just buy into this, you will get so stinking fit and so aerobic, and there'll be no injuries, and you'll have better results. I know it works. I know it works, and it's just getting people to understand it. It's so simple, and it is arbitrary, and only that I say, like, I can guesstimate anybody's max heart rate based on a few questions, and then you come to find out I'm within 2 or 3 beats. And again,
Well, let's get
I'm
into
not
that,
saying,
Ray, because I don't want to spend more than 5 more minutes on heart rate zone because I
yeah.
do want to give you time to talk about the last piece. But my last question about heart rate specifically, and I can speak to this. I've done the VO2 max testing. I've done every kind of test you can do for heart rate zones and variability and everything short of giving blood, which in hindsight, I probably wouldn't do or recommend any of those tests without giving blood. Now that with the technology out there now, it's the only one I think is actually accurate because having done multiple VO2 max tests where you wear the mask,
Mhm.
everyone's seen it on TV or seen a clip. It's good. It gives you a lot of data. It gives you very specific data. When I was training on those zones versus training on the zones that you prescribed when I worked with you, which were hyper personal and I feel more accurate versus a ramp test,
Mhm.
um, my zones are much more accurate. They keep me healthy. They allow me because they're conservative. And I'll admit it, I feel that my training zones are probably a couple beats lower than what they actually are. So I interpret my zones as training zones versus race zones. And what that means to me is when I'm in that final leg of my race and I know it's time to kick to the finish line, I know I have an extra probably 7 or 8 beats that I can go into to really push to my absolute max. And the way
Mhm.
I use your zones have been the key to all of the successes I've had versus the VO2 zones I got from ramp testing, which
Mhm.
I didn't feel were accurate because if anyone hasn't done a ramp test before, it's very difficult and you might end up not reaching your maximum or getting there too soon.
Yeah.
So
I
Ray,
feel
how
like
do how
those
do you come up with zones?
I just feel like the testing, is it leads to, again, just bear with me. We're talking about amateur athletes, the novice athlete, the bulk of the people I work with, even the few pros that I've worked with, I mean, the tests inflate the numbers. So therefore, it makes it harder to perform X, Y, and Z, which leads to disappointment and
Mm-hmm.
then doubt and then just all kinds of negativity. Why not be a little bit conservative? Because at the end of the day, you're still going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not improving, fine. I could see if you're not improving, then throw me out the door. But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen. And again, I've seen what it did for myself, and that's why I had the confidence to start to utilize it, some odd years ago because I was like, wow, this works. Like really backing off works. I mean, I could see how much stronger I got. And again,
Absolutely.
no injuries. I've never had an injury in the sport. The only injuries I've had is, yeah, I've been hit by cars and
Yeah.
I've crashed my bike on my own account. Like,
Yeah. Stuff out
I
of your
can
control.
honestly say I've never had an injury where I was out. You hammy for, put you out for 3 days, or a knot in my back, put you out for a week from swimming. Not an injury where I shut it down. Never, it's never happened. And so, am I not pushing my body? Well, that's clear. That's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
So for the older athletes, especially, but for the person who has another life, so to speak, this more conservative approach, I think it's a safer way. But at the end of the day, regardless, it works. It works, and it's maybe it might take have dare I say this, a little bit longer to get to where you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be a much more effective way. I mean, I've seen it with this particular client I have. She's in her mid 20s. We've gone from basically a 4:25 marathon to a 3:25 marathon
Oh wow.
in I don't know if you know if it's been 3 years and only 4 races. And she, again, only, I'm just being sarcastic in parentheses, she only runs 4 days a week. So,
Amazing.
in the grand scheme of
That's
things,
realistic though too, Ray. That timeline, that's not selling. Some people will say you'll drop an hour in a month. That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
realistic
yeah.
approach.
But again,
So,
it's
Ray,
a
I have
very basic approach. It was all originally, we're doing track workouts now in our third year, but it
okay.
was all originally heart rate based and me telling her every 5 minutes, slow down, slow down, slow
Yeah,
down.
and I've seen you do it. Now, Ray, I do have one last question about the establishing heart rate zones because I've
Yeah.
we're talking a lot about younger athletes, and I know for a fact you work with a lot of older athletes or
Mhm.
maybe just people who are starting an athletic journey for the first time who might not be in the best shape. So I've seen you use 5Ks and Tabatas to establish heart rate zones for the run
Mhm.
and the bike.
Mhm.
How do you establish heart rate zones for someone that might be, either on the heavier side or older in age where it's maybe not safe to do a 5K or a Tabata ride yet?
Mhm. Well, again, simple, quick questionnaire interview, ask them about their history, health history, background, athletic background. And like I said, it's arbitrary, and I may be off low by a few beats, but at the end of the day, so what? It's a conservative, safe approach. And again, we start off with recovery pace training. It is
Mm,
what it is. You start with the lower end re- recovery in zone one. The bulk of its time is there, and you just see that the time falls off, if you will. Go from whatever they're doing, walk run ratios, to keep the heart rate down, or how much distance they're covering in 30 minutes. 4 or 5 months down the road. It's really that simple.
awesome.
With
Awesome.
with with almost with no intensity, none.
Yeah.
I mean, none. It just it just aerobically, if you will, or organically, if you will, just you and ultimately too, you burn a lot of body fat that way too. When you're having that zone, when you're having that lower zone, right?
Mm,
The fueling is easier, and you're using your body more so for fuel, because when you come with the intensity, then it's becomes more of a complicated process, and you need to fuel the body so that you keep going at an intensity. And at the end of the day, too, with anything, the lower your heart rate is, the easier it is to fuel. So that's just a very practical, very sensible way to look at it. The lower your heart rate is, easier it is to fuel. And now the name of the game is all this obscene amount of fuel per hour, especially at the elite level. I mean, the only way to do that is with the low heart rate. They're not doing that with high heart rates. They're just not.
well, I
So,
definitely want to get into some of that too. So, Ray, why don't we've been going for about an hour and a half now. I've been drinking a lot of coffee this morning. Give me 1 minute. We're gonna take a 1 minute break and then come back. I'm gonna swap a battery in the camera and then we'll get started again in a minute. Okay.
okay, cool. I'm gonna grab some water. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, Ray. We're back.
All right.
Okay, so I do want to make sure we get into we've done a lot of talking about heart rate zone, who you are, your approach to everything. I think the heart rate stuff is so important because I think a lot of people just don't know what it is, and I know how difficult from firsthand experience it can be to get that reality check of
Mm-hmm.
working with heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember for me, who was someone who was running because I was boxing, forever. So it's not like I wasn't running. I just wasn't running 3 mile distance plus, starting my journey. And you kind of get a gut check when you say run in zone one because I need you to be able to run for 3 or 4 days in a row. And then all of a sudden you're running so slow that it's like almost a walk or almost a jog. But I do want to tell people if you just stick with it for that first month and get through the growing pains, you establish a real heart rate zone that you can work with over a distance. Because if your goal is to do something like running a 5K or your first 10K or half marathon or even a full marathon, it's about consistency and it's about, like you've been talking about, right, staying healthy. And if you do like what I was trying to do and go out and crushing, what I now know to be a zone 3 or zone 4 workout every day, it's just not sustainable. So it can be difficult to go slow, but if you learn to go slow, you will eventually go fast. And I mean, prime example, even at a higher level, let's look at me in September when I had a broken ankle for all of 2024. we went to nationals for USA Triathlon. I hadn't run for 2.5 months. You were just
Yeah.
having me bike and swim, and we were trying to heal what we now know to be a broken ankle. And I ended up doing a 44-minute off the bike in solid zone 2 on a broken ankle. And I could have gone faster if it wasn't for the pain. And that's not to say that it's super awesome or slow, but it's a solid pace for someone that wasn't running, who wasn't in peak shape,
Yep.
and was just going slow and trying to be healthy. So my point being, you, for the regular athletes out there, you can go really fast by going slow. And back to your point about adding 3 minutes, the famous example of Kipchoge, we have elite marathon runners who are doing crazy sub 5 minute marathon pace, and then they're going out and doing a 10-minute recovery pace.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you have guys running sub 5, doing 10, 11, 12, even 12 minutes slow recovery pace, I hear you. It's crazy when someone that's, an 8-minute miler, which awesome, fantastic. It's awesome that you got there, but you gotta slow down when elite world class runners are running 3, 4, even 5 minutes slower than their actual marathon
Yeah,
pace.
yeah. I
You know,
mean,
the proof is out there.
and it's not like it's a gimmick or anything. It's a fact. It's not even science. It's a fact. You can see them doing it. I remember I was living on Cape Cod, and they have the famous Falmouth Road Race, and it's a 7 mile road race, and they're running it in 28 minutes. And the guy that won was out the next day. I came up on him. I was out on a little run too, and he was running 9-minute miles. After just running 4 minutes pace for 7 miles, 28 minutes. He was running 9-minute miles for his recovery run. He was out there for like an hour, longer than he had raced at, obviously an hour at running nine. So it's I wouldn't even call it science. It's just like what has been discovered through, I don't know, trial and error, but you can identify with the heart rate. I mean, you can show me, or I can show you, just if you just simply just do it, just look at you, and you would know, again, heart rate variability. If you are claiming yourself to be an 8:45, say, let's say your recovery pace is 8:45, which, well, to me, do the math. I mean, that means you run a sub 5 minute mile, and you're a 5 minute pace 5K. You're not, like, no offense, most likely you're not. And I can win that debate if you just show me your heart rate. And so let's say your recovery is 8:45, then what then is your zone 1, your zone 2, your zone 3? You're running out of, I mean, there should be a real variance there. So if your low end is 8:45, where do you go from there? Like, what are you
Yeah.
running? What are you running your long run in? What's your zone 2? I mean, your zone 2 is 6:45. I mean, it doesn't line up, right? It doesn't line up. It's a great learning tool. Power meter and heart rate monitor, they're great learning tools, but they also are your reality. It's yours.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not using mine, right? You're using yours. I'm not saying go by my heart rate zones. They're your heart rate zones.
Yeah, they're
Based on
personalized.
what does this pace mean to your body?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to be different, and that's where I was watching a podcast, and they were discussing two different athletes at 8:30 pace,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, well, and referring to zone 2 and 8:30 pace for these two athletes. Well, first of all, that's impossible because both of those athletes have two different heart rates. I mean, even if they were the same age, they're gonna just the perceived effort, it's gonna fall differently, right? And again, if you're talking 8:30 versus an elite, 8:30 versus a novice, and 8:30, those are all different. Those are all different worlds. It can't possibly be there. That's not their zone 2, right? So
Yeah.
you don't identify it and say, oh, well, this person's zone 2 at 8:30 is 150. This person's is 175, and this person's is one. That's not zone 2. That's like, one
Yeah, it's way
one
too
one
high.
175. That's, I mean, that's zone 4. I mean, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So that's why use your lower ends, because it's so much more productive. and that's where you're going to do all your volume. I mean, the best cyclists in the world, they ride, 400, 500, 600 miles a week, but the
Mhm.
bulk of it is in their lower zone.
Yeah.
It's in a lower zone. It's 200 watts with a 120 heart rate. I mean, it's for hours and out, not just one time, not just 1 hour. It's for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and that's how they achieve 400 watts for 30 minutes. Some crazy whatever it is. Some absurd wattage for those short bursts. But you have to have your lower end first. And I feel like it starts with a recovery zone, and that's zone R, not zone one. Zone one is that's too ambitious. It's too high
Mhm.
uh, for recovery. I'm saying for
Yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Cool. Okay, right. So, like I said, I think super valuable information for anyone. And I know, you're not trying to sell a get rich quick scheme. You
you know,
just said it. Pro athletes are out there every day for hours and hours and hours. And, for things that look impossible to the normal person, again, it's the consistency. Yeah, there are the LeBron Jameses out there, or the poacher cars, or anyone else. But at the end of the day, most pros are just people who are hyper consistent, who can put the work in and day out, and try to be a little bit better than they were yesterday. And over years, it adds up. And that's really how we get there. And then it's about being smart. And for me, it's funny, as I've really gone from that, really beginner athlete to really knowing what I'm doing now, and really seeing numbers improve and get to a respectable level. It's funny when we talk about heart rate, my recovery zones are actually getting slower as I'm getting faster on the top end, as opposed to when I was
because you
starting.
learn that if I'm on a recovery ride, I don't care who passes me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It doesn't matter.
no.
You
So
do it right.
let's get into what it's like to actually work with you as a coach. We have plenty of time left. So talk to me about managing athletes, managing expectations, what your expectations are for a coach, what you expect out of your athletes, and most importantly, what you're providing to the team as a whole.
Mhm. So like I said, it's more of I feel like an athlete management role at any level, because I like to be involved in as much as I can, if you want me to be. I mean, I'm not going to force you to tell me, what bike or what running shoes you're going to use or buy. But if I know, it just tells me more about you and how I can sort of create the best environment for you. I like I said, I'm not an analyzer because I feel like through my experience and knowledge, I know what the training is doing to you, whether you want to, believe it or not, or own up to it or not. I know what a 3 hour run does to the body, or what a 5 hour ride does to the body, or a
Mm.
5,000 yard swim does to the body, right? Compiled over the course of weeks and days and months and years. So I rely on communication. I can't read my athlete's mind. So if I don't hear from you, um, no news is good news, so to speak. But if you're having a rough time, or you have some questions, or you're fumbling, or you're not understanding a workout, you have my private line. I give my private line to everyone. I'm available 24 hours a day. I literally am, because I'm coaching in all different time zones. So we come to an agreement. I design a plan. We get first and foremost those heart rate zones established. We solidify fueling. So I want to make sure you really understand what really fueling means to me per hour for you. It's case by case, obviously. Again, that's another very arbitrary yet customizable thing. You can. It's a lot harder to underfuel than it is to overfuel. And
Mhm.
again, I've learned that through experience. So it's like we need to get a baseline, and then if you want more, by all means, I'm all for it. So the plan, the zones, the communication, I'm open. If you're pondering a new bike or something and you want to run it by me, fine. Bike fit. Again, that's another very arbitrary thing. There's not a right or wrong position, if you will. I mean,
Okay,
there's
let's talk about bike fit for a second, because that's a big topic, and especially for athletes getting into the sport. And one of my two of my favorite games that you like to play with athletes is guess your finish time for race day, where I've seen you on multiple occasions come within 30 seconds of finish times on like 5Ks and stuff, and then maybe for like Ironman coming within 5 to 10 minutes of finish times, which is always hysterical. I think the athletes are probably playing the "we need to beat Ray" game, where you give us a time and we try to go out and beat it. But bike fits especially. I have seen you literally working with pictures that people send you or sending you videos, dialing bike fits to like 98% of professional fitters. And I
yeah,
know you've done this for years and years.
yeah.
So how do you get someone fitted on the proper bike?
Well, obviously, it's like buying a suit. There are certain measurements you have to adhere to, obviously, because you don't want to have lower back, knee, hip injuries, neck injuries, that sort of thing, or issues, right? You should be comfortable. But to the naked eye, I mean, I don't know how some people get into some of these positions or put into some of these positions. It's baffling to me. So a lot of people, I'll say, if you want me to, because they've approached me with it, send me a side video of yourself with a clean background, about 30-second minute video, and at some point stop with the outside pedal down. Drop your heel
Mhm.
so I can see the leg. But there are certain basic principles of the position. I mean, granted, you want to get as aggressive as you can safely, and also at the end of the day being most comfortable. But again, I see these positions and I can't for the life of me figure out how they got into these positions or how they could possibly be uh, comfortable or beneficial in any way. So the standard time trial position, if you will, to me, it's very obvious. I mean, you want to have your head low, your back flat, your legs not overextended, but then not underextended, and then you want to be more forward than back. I mean, again, look at the best positions. Now, when we say best positions, that means the most uh, aesthetically pleasing, if you will, or squared off, if you will, or not sort of like head up in the air kind of thing, or like looking like maybe like you're riding a horse where your lower extremity is like much lower than your
Yeah.
hands, right? You want to try to get flat as possible. So I mean, I'll just come across pictures and I'll say to myself, geez, I wish I could tell this person to raise their arms or lower their head or raise their seat or lower their seat, you know get that saddle all the way forward as opposed to all the way back. There's
Yeah.
certain
Well,
things that I can
let me,
see that are
right, let me get a little
basic.
more specific.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me get a little more specific because I know this is a big
yeah,
point of contention for a lot of people. Um,
yeah,
the point I'm making is I've seen you do it because I've done it with you and I've seen you do it for other elite athletes who are actually elite, much more successful
yeah.
than me, where you're dialing the bike fit. And I remember when I got started, for anyone that doesn't know, bike fits are expensive now. They're usually around $300 to $500 for a bike fit. You can buy a bike for that. Used bike, but you can, yeah, I've done it. I got a fleet of them. And my first bike fit was so bad that I called you and you just said, send me a video and just humor me. And I made the adjustments you made, and I was so much more comfortable. And then
Yeah.
come to find out, 2 years later, when I got another bike fit with someone that knew what they were doing, my first fitter literally gave me numbers that didn't make sense. We couldn't even decipher them.
Mm-hmm.
So, my point being is, I think for the new athlete who's new to a triathlon bike, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable position,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe it's not worthwhile to spend $500 on a bike fit that's only going to change as they increase their comfort in a TT position. I think it's more valuable for an athlete to, consult a bike fitter, kind of find what general geometry might work best for them, but
Mhm.
then to actually get comfortable riding the bike over the course of maybe 6 months to a year, which is really what it takes to get comfortable on a TT bike.
Mhm.
And then when they feel that they're now looking for that edge to really take themselves to the next level, maybe at that point it's time to consider spending that much money on a bike fit, because that's a big chunk of change for a lot of people. We're talking an Ironman entry for a lot of people, half Ironman, but that's multiple races, which you're going to get more experience, or a camp, as
Yeah.
opposed to spending money on a fit that's only going to change in a couple of weeks as fitness improves.
Mhm. I relate, I guess, it to. I feel like with my surfing background, you get a magic surfboard, as we say. Like it just,
Mm-hmm.
you can't explain it. It just works, or you just
Mm-hmm.
like it under your feet. It just works, and then you break it, and you're like, wow, that stinks. And then you get another one, which supposedly the dimensions are the exact same, and it's not. It's a completely different board.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned that over the years. I mean, since let's just say 2012, I've probably had 10 bikes more or
Mm-hmm.
more through that time. I was lucky enough to get new bikes quite often, and I hated the first. I hated every. I mean, I liked the look of them. I was
Mm-hmm.
interested, appreciative, but I hated the new bike. I hated it. I hated it. I wanted my previous bike,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it was very frustrating to me. And it's probably one of the, if I want to say, from a weak mindset standpoint, where I was weakest. Like I really, this is the one thing that I just. Most other things do not bother me. Being sick or missing workouts or not doing well in a race, but this one thing for some reason drove me insane. Where I get this new bike and I hate it. It doesn't feel right, and yes, they copy the numbers
Mm-hmm.
and this and that and the other, and it just doesn't feel the same, not even close. And I'll give you an example. I was sponsored by Parley for 3 years, and then I switched to a partnership with Felt. And
Mm-hmm.
this was the early days. Like I was one of the first to have the quote unquote first Felt super bike. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was 2016. And I went from Parley, which I loved. There was no need to change. It was just a business thing. There was no need to change. I loved my bike. Had some really good races on it. Great bike times. Yada yada. Just changing. All different types of wheel companies, by the way. I get the Felt, and I hated it. I hated it. I hated the way it sounded, the way it felt. I felt like I was going slower. It was harder to produce the same power to go this. And then next thing you know, I mean, I just gave it time. And then, yes, okay, then everything matched up. And then the numbers, my usual specs and numbers came back. But my point is, it's so, again, arbitrary. I use that word a lot. It's never going to be the same. There's no way you can go from bike to bike and have your fit, quote unquote, be the same. I can show you 10 different pictures of me and they look all different. Why? Because I messed around with my fits. I was fit originally, and then I changed it based on feelings I had, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily by look, but by feeling, because to the eye it looks fine. But I probably had my best fit and bike and everything, it all combined, was probably 2016. In 2017, probably. I liked the way it looked, and I was performing. But there are other years where my numbers were better, but I just didn't look as good. Do you see my point? So
Yeah.
it's changed so many times over. I've paid for fit, um, and I've done it by eye. I've never actually been on one of those sort of engineer, like one
Yep.
of those.
Yep.
Have not. And I think that's a good way in some ways because, granted, I'm sure wind tunnel testing would expose some things and that and the other thing. But let's take, for example, and not to be negative, but let's take Lionel Sanders, for example. He has changed his position so many times over his career, but he's basically producing the same results, right? Different bikes, different positions, same results. The guy is fast. He's super strong on the bike. The numbers, I mean, maybe it's a little easier with CDA improvement to go 360 watts for an hour versus this bike versus this bike versus this helmet. But at the end of the day, it's the same guy in all kinds of different positions.
Mhm.
So there is no one position. There isn't. There just is
Yeah.
not. Look
And
at
Trey,
look.
I just wanna jump in just for a second because I don't want anyone to mishear what you just said, or if anyone jumped in late. What you're saying is the rider is more important. And when we look at someone like
Yes.
Lionel, his ability to, because you've raced him, he's been around forever. His ability to adapt to different bikes, or your ability to adapt to different bikes, is it's the rider. And what you're really making me think about too is because I come from motorcycle racing, road racing, and nothing is more difficult than when we change from one bike to another, as in changing manufacturers from like I was on a Honda and I changed to a Yamaha, and I went from, an elite racer to like a beginner, and I had to relearn how to do everything on the new bike. But it's possible. And now with my new fitter in my new shop, I really trust, we don't use all the numbers. We're going by feel and his experience, and we're looking at windows. And as long
Mhm.
as we fit in a window of a fit, then he gives me the final say of what's more comfortable if we go to the one end of the window versus the other, and we try to compromise.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he's not charging $500 to do it. He's an experienced racer that knows this is what you need. And when he told me pretty much like when we start getting under that 445 window, which is my ultimate goal on the bike, he said, then come back and we'll put you on the machine and we'll dial in and we'll get CDA right. But you're not there yet. He said, get the
I'll give
fitness
you,
up first.
and again, through again practical coaching, my experience, I can tell you a story. So one of my fastest bike splits in my career, or you could say one of my fastest bikes, because Ironman Texas is about a mile and a half, 2 miles short.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular Ironman Arizona race was probably my fastest bike split ever, and my seat slid down about 2 inches. So, and I have photos of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I built my bike, get to Arizona, do the race. I have a good race, but I realized that my seat during, I didn't know this, but I knew it because like you can see like I put my number on the seat post, and where it was in the seat post, it was almost like falling into the frame. So over the course of the bike, my seat slid down like a good 2 inches. That is a lot.
Yeah,
Two
that's
inches.
huge.
And I'm 6'2". So 2 inches, that's like, I'm looking at it right now. It's a lot. So long story short, like my seat slid down 2 inches and I had my fastest ever bike split. So I'm just saying, like, the body can, you can't like be so stringent to those numbers because you really don't know. You have to obviously, there's basic numbers where you buy the right frame size, obviously.
Yeah,
If you're a
it's a
54
window.
frame, you don't buy a 58, or if you're a
Yeah.
54, you don't buy a 4. That obviously you get the right frame, for goodness sake. But the bike is so adjustable where, for example, I'm 6'2", and by the math, they would want me on a 58. Well, I've always ridden 56 or 57 because I
Mm-hmm.
have short legs and I like to get into a very aggressive position. And I can get, for a tall guy, and I have crazy long arms, I can get really low.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so you would want to say, oh, I had a shitty race. My seat post slid 2 inches, and that wasn't yada yada yada. You see my point? Like I
Yeah.
didn't even know. I didn't even know, and it ended up being a very very fast bike split. And I didn't. I think it was a power. It was a power record. Everything. So I start. Then what happens is I'm like, Jesus, is my seat supposed to be lower than it has been? that sort of thing kind of gets into your mind. And like I said, I've changed my position, maybe my seat height, give or take a bit, or front and back, give or take a bit. My aero bars up or down. There's all kinds of different. But you want to
Hey,
be.
that brings up a question because as you're talking about your handlebars, I'm looking at that picture behind you. I have a question about your thoughts on this from just your experience.
Yeah,
You and like Jan Frodeno ride with a very low hand position, and obviously you two have been uber bikers throughout your careers. And then now the shift is going to a high hand position, and we saw in Jan's last race, he was one of the fastest bikes out there with a very
yeah,
like old school low hand position. So
yeah.
what's your thought on this new high hand position? Is it right or wrong? Is it just a feeling? What's your thoughts on
Well, again, I'll defer to my pal Andrew Starkowitz. If you see his hands, he's a big guy, bigger than me, bigger than I think taller than Ferdinand too. I think he's 6'4", and he's a big guy. And he rides with low. He's low and aggressive, and probably riding, I bet, a smaller frame than by the numbers. He's
it?
supposed to be riding by one size if I know him, and his hands are low, and he's got just about every record there
Yeah.
is. And yeah, so again, I never had high hands. I never my career. I never. It was always standard, if you will, or lower, flatter. And now with the fairings that they're putting in between
Yep.
their arms, and now I think, is that legal now, or is it legal? Oh no, you can't stick it down your shirt. But
Yeah.
now they're making bottles for there's a
Yep.
fairing where you can actually put. So I have a funny story about that. So yes, I have low hands. I can get low. My head's very low for a big guy. Um, I actually Cozumel, Ironman Cozumel one year, I I broke off my rear. We used to zip tie them to the seat, and I jumping on, I the bottle was taller, and I broke it right off. So I lost the bottle. So I lost that bottle cage, and then I went over a bump, and I had that aero bottle under on my frame. I went
Yep.
over a bump. There's a bump. Probably everybody that's done Cozumel knows where this bump is, and I lost that bottle. So I'm 5 miles down the road, and I have no bottle. So I took from the aid station a bottle,
Mhm.
guzzled it, and then I put it down my shirt, never not knowing anything about the aerodynamic benefit
Yes.
or anything like that. I put a bottle down my chest and rode with it for the entire day. And then I'm like, well, I can't litter. That bottle is not, I was taking out, drinking it, putting it back. And now I'm like, well, that bottle's empty. And I don't want to like take the time to take it out because I'm trying to stay down and I'm not going to litter. So that bottle stayed in my jersey under my chin for and I had like a really good bike split, and who knows? I didn't know anything about that aero benefit that was discovered down some years later.
Yeah,
But
that's
I have a picture, and you can see that I have a bottle down my jersey, and I'm like really low and going fast, and yeah. So anyway, but the low hands, I'm just comfortable. I'm comfortable. I've tried to bring them up,
well. Let me ask
and
then.
when I borrowed your bike, when
Yep,
I had
that's
your
what I was
bike,
gonna get to.
I found myself wanting to get lower, but you can't because that's
Yeah.
that so I just left it. But guess what? I just rode with it for what I have that bike for a month, and it was
Yep.
fine. And when you're going and feeling good, you forget. Like I didn't wasn't like the whole time. Oh, my arms need to be low. My arms need to be lower. But I was like, wow, this is cool. It's sort of the new day, like angled up,
Yep.
and it was awkward at first, but I eventually forgot, and just that was that. But anyway, I always preferred the lower arm. No one told me that or anything, but the one fit I had, that's where I ended up.
Hmm.
And like I said, for a bigger guy with shorter legs, I was able to get really low. And I used a Shimano cockpit that just allowed me to get very, very low. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious about them. For anyone that was curious or follows any of my Instagram pages or anything, I'm running the 51 speed shot bars. So they angle up pretty aggressively. For me, I like that high position. So I like having a low head and high hands. It just feels comfortable for me.
But we
I feel
we and we were talking about the fit, like honestly, like so back to that so basics. But there is definitely I've seen a bad position out there. Like people
oh
are in bad position, and I feel like they're being judged where they're like, okay, this person is not 25 and they're not sleek and slender and made of rubber, so I'm going to put them in this position. It just looks awful. And that's where I'm saying, like, try and put everyone in that same, like a downhill skier, right? So like you're down a downhill skier, that position they're in, the hands
mhm.
forward, the most important part of the position is the head. That the helmet is the most
Yep.
important, then the hands, then the feet, then the wheels. Like honestly, you could be perfectly aero without race wheels and be faster than someone with race wheels, because the
Mhm.
helmet fit the way it falls, and your hands and then your feet are, that's where all the drag is, all the the so to get into a stock, if you will, standard position. I mean, just give me a bike off the rack and give me anybody, and I'm going to build it the way I feel like that should be. But some of these people that I see, I'm just like, man, I'm like, I feel bad because that's just not fair. And they don't know any different. They don't know any different.
Yep. And that's the biggest piece is not knowing. And like I said, you really helped navigate me at the start of my triathlon journey when I got my first TT bike. And like I knew how a regular bike fit, a road bike fit, but the TT bikes are just so different. And there's just too much information out there and not enough just honest people that you can trust to walk
The
you through
best
it.
the best fit I did, I don't know if you were there, was we joke about it. The best bike fit I've ever done to this day, and the results are there, was for a young lady, and we did it in IHOP parking lot in
Yep.
Texas. We were
Yep.
having
Knew
our
you were
team
going there.
breakfast. We were having our group breakfast. Her bike was outside in the car, and I was like, "Do you want me to do it now?" I went out there with chewing my pancake, went out there and adjusted her fit, and the rest is history. The girl's
Yep.
killing it. So,
Yep.
yeah, and it's not like I'm not Einstein, but it's a very basic concept, and I could see by my eye that she bought the bike, and it was very, she was capable of a better position, and
Yeah.
so.
Well, Ray, I can even probably second that. I remember the last time we had camp up at Lake Placid, I think back in 23, and we couldn't get my new bike working with the electronics, and you grabbed the spare bike, and while I was on the phone with the shop, I didn't even know you pulled out a spare bike right up next to me and you started tweaking stuff. You were
You
like, yo,
muted
your
it.
bike's ready. Let's go. I hopped on the bike. It was a perfect fit, like first shot. So that was really funny. But okay, so Ray, I do want to. We've been going for about 2 hours now. Um, I do want to start wrapping up. So let's let's just tell everyone now, if someone wants to, get at least a consultation with you, if they want to get in contact with you and start having you be their coach, how should they get in contact with you?
Pretty easy to get a hold of. I mean, I'm on all the social media outlets. You know,
What's your social medias?
uh, so I'm on Facebook, just Raymond Botelho, and then I have an RB fitness racing page. It's open to the public. I don't have it private. And then my Instagram is at RayWatch73. That's a nickname I was given back when I started lifeguarding, and then 73 is my birth year. So a lot of people ask me, where did you come up with that? So that's just a nickname, and then my birth year. And
And then your new website too, right?
Yeah, so Ray BotelloFitness.com. And then I think my email is shared on there. My cell phone is Raymond.Botello@yahoo.com. Like I said, I'm available 24 hours a day. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, you can DM me, Messenger, whatever. Call me, text me. I'm here. and I'm available. I love to work with new athletes of any ability. I don't withhold. I don't cherry pick. Anyone that's interested, I consider it. Pretty simple. I'm pretty prompt. I like to, we have that initial chat interview, if you will. I have a questionnaire, and then honestly, quite frankly, I just get to work, and I love that beginning phase because yeah, I'm interested in some of your background, but like I like to just basically, if you will, just start from scratch, make those heart rate zones, solidify fueling plan, figure out what the best, how the best week would be for you as far as flow would go, like long days, recovery days, day off. I always ask that. So, what's the best? What's the? I love that question. Everyone's always eager to answer me. Oh, best long bike day, best long run day. Oh, they've got all kinds. But when I say best case scenario day off, it's like I get a little pause, and they're like, I guess this day. I'm like, well, you're going to have a day off, so because there's going to be a hole on your calendar on that day. I'm not putting anything on that specific day. So we need to agree on that now, please.
That's
So
great.
that's how that goes, and then we get into it. And I usually give it a couple weeks to get to know each other, smooth out the kinks, get comfortable with the change. I know sometimes people have never worked with a coach before and they're a little nervous. Let's hand the keys over to someone else, or you've had a coach and whether it worked or not, you're nervous because maybe my way is completely different. You've never used Harley before, or you're not familiar with power meter or this, whatever. It doesn't matter. I make sure at the very beginning we've got the basic principles in agreement and understanding so that I can do my part. And I really like to handle it, manage it all. And then I'm here to just bounce questions, and you can challenge me, question me, ask me why, what, how. But I'm pretty, in a good way, pretty stubborn. Where if I really have an idea in a mind, a story painted for you, I'm gonna probably try to stick to it, unless you have some some earth-shattering reason why we can't. Then I am flexible. I do the plan 1 week at a time, and I
Mhm.
do it that way because, believe it or not, however many athletes I'm working with at the time, I can remember what I've planned for you, and I can go back and adjust it. And I'm willing to adjust it at any time. I don't want to go too far ahead because, like, if this week wasn't done to plan, we want to make some adjustments to moving forward. I'm not going to just throw up a bunch of weeks and then, you know, fumble, or that's what you're stuck with. No, 1 week at a time, maybe 8 days at a time, and then I'm always willing to adjust it on the fly. No questions asked. No, there's no delay. It's instant. I love Training Peaks Premium. It's really, really good software. And I like to use the very basic aspects of that software. And I also believe it or not, use Strava for coaching. It's not so much a social app for me as it is. There are some cool metrics on there that I like to use. And also I'm kind of kidding, but I can stalk my athletes because I can see where you are. I can see where you are, what you did, right? I can see where you are, what you did, the layout, the environment. Was it indoor? Was it outdoor? That sort of thing. Who you were with. And I'm telling you right now, the first thing I go to, Cody knows the answer. What's the first thing I look at?
Heart rate.
Okay. So, I can see that anywhere. I can see it from 3 different places. I look at your workout, not looking at numbers. I'm not looking at KOMs or any of that. I go right down to the heart rate and see. First, I see if it was like, say it was a 2 hour ride, I make to see if it was 2 hours or if it was 158 or if it was 211. I like to bust the chops about that a little bit. But ultimately, I will look at the heart rate and see if it was where we agreed that it would be. It's really that simple. And that's communication to me. Instead of analyzing and
Yep.
over analyzing, I've seen it. I'm seeing it 3 different ways. So we're looking at it, and then week to week we're moving forward, and it's that's the way it goes, and I feel like it works best, and I've had great results so far. So
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I'll also add to that that when you're working with you, it's a month to month. You pay for the month. There's no contracts, no commitments. So if you want to try it out, if it doesn't work for you, it's always, keep it respectful and keep it kind, but can
Yeah,
part
you're
ways
not
whenever you
you're
need
not stuck. You're not stuck with me by any means.
to.
You know,
No 1 year contracts, nothing like
yeah,
that.
I'm
I've
not.
seen that.
Yeah, no, I just feel like I want to keep it open and honest. In 1 week, excuse me, 1 month at a time, month to month is totally fine. I mean, there are some incentives for commitment with me, but at the end of the day, 1 month at a time, and I just, I want to put the pressure on myself to perform and do the best job I can, so that we like I've had clients over 5 years, easily 10. I have a few clients I work with for 10 years, so um, I appreciate that loyalty, and we've had some good results. I mean, hundreds of athletes have come and gone. People come and go for different reasons. I'm okay with that. So
Awesome. Okay. Ray, it's definitely been awesome time talking to you. We gotta do this again sometime. Let me put in a couple of the plugs and a couple of additions to working with you and working with the RB team. So last year in 2024, Ray Botelho Fitness partnered with the Be Beautiful Foundation. That way we could offer cross services and supports to each other. So when you're working with Ray, part of what I handle as one of his assistant coaches is a lot of our corporate stuff. So we have sponsors from all the big brands. We get discounts with Roll Recovery, one of the best recovery brands out there, makes all the best tools to help you stay fresh. Um, Animal Pack, which is a supplement company, some of the cleanest nutrition out there. Both me and Ray have done the personal training and bodybuilding stuff before, so we're really big on having clean supplements that you can know and trust. We work with Rudy Project and get discounts from them for all of our racers for eyewear and helmets, some of the fastest helmets on the market. Um, we also do stuff with 51 Speed Shop, the cockpit on our bikes that we were talking about before. We, through working with Ray, I also offer monthly one free sports counseling session with any and all of our athletes that want to take advantage of it. So, especially for those elite athletes who are looking to get an edge in competition and trying to manage their health and mental wellness, we know how much stress can be placed on athletes, especially with younger athletes that just have less life experience overall. I am always here to assist and help out in any way I can. We also offer specific services with consideration towards athletes with special needs, whatever that might be. So we make accommodations. We work with everyone we can. Raise managing training plans through Training Peaks, so everyone gets um, individualized plans on a monthly basis. We do team camps in Texas, Lake Placid, Florida. So there's opportunities for us to get together from all over the country, all on the same weekend, and get by far the best money you're ever going to spend, and insights directly from Ray, who's either out there training with us or providing SAG support and coaching intel from a pro perspective. Definitely the best stuff you can do. We also get discounts for the swimmers with Blue 70, who's swimmer's brand. You can check out the other videos on our YouTube page for our reviews over top level products. Any of the fastest swimmers are in Blue 70, and also the Magic 5 goggles for custom fitted eyewear for while you're swimming in the pool. I've been racing with them for years. All of our sponsors support all of our messages. Um, we can't do it without them. The sport is expensive as it needs to begin with. So every little bit counts. And as always, we want to support those who are supporting you. And if you're looking for a coach that honestly cares about your personal well-being and is invested in you and sees success beyond what you think is possible, that's Ray Botelho. That's who Ray is as a coach. That's why I've been with him forever. He's really taken me from intro level athlete to just advanced athlete overall. And we're talking just outside triathlon, the insights to personal training and fitness and coaching and nutrition, especially. We also work with Honey Stinger and Scratch Labs supplement companies. So when I talk about the similarities between what Ray's providing as a elite professional athlete who's been in the game for more than 20 years versus what the current science is giving us, it lines up. It just it's so parallel that all the insights that you're going to get from working with our team are going to really allow you to have access to opportunities for the next level. And Ray will be the first one to tell you, if you're not getting better, it's as simple as you're not doing the work. He's not selling the dream. We keep it very simple. It's not complicated. You have to do the work to get faster, but you also have the support of a coach and coaching staff that's going to make sure you have the tools you need to succeed. So if you want to learn more, RayBotelloFitness.com, Instagram and Facebook at hashtag RayWatch73 or just RB Fitness. If you want to learn more about our nonprofit ventures through the Be Beautiful Foundation, you can learn more about us and about Ray at bebeautifulfoundation.org. That's bebeautifulfoundation.org. Instagram and Facebook, same thing, Be Beautiful Foundation. And we also want to thank our host company, Zupac Athletic Club, my for-profit venture, who supports and hosts all the video and media that we do as a Nikon professional photographer and media host. Everything that has been provided to me for media production has been with the support of Nikon for Zupac Athletic Club. So you can find me when I'm not racing behind the camera at all your favorite races, including anything Ironman related, the top national marathons, biggest races. I'll be at Unbound 200 this year in Leadville. So as always, don't forget to smile for the camera and thank your photographer. We will always steer you in the right direction when it comes to looking great. And as always, above everything else, support those that support you. Hashtag race speed. Team kits from Jackaroo. We have the nicest looking kits out there. So those are going to get released this week. And as always, hashtag be beautiful. We'll see everyone next time. Be beautiful, stay beautiful. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cody.